Okay, thank you, Jennifer. We take a motion first to close executive session and to reopen the public meeting. Is there a motion? Trustee O'Donnell, second. Trustee Corrales, all in favor? Okay. Meeting will come to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and a prayer by Trustee O'Donnell. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In around 20 years of public service in various entities, when there's a major issue, rancor rules becomes very tough to get things done because all people want to do is argue and complain about the previous person or whatever. And 12 days ago, we had a public hearing at the Embassy Center on a project that is controversial to a number of people. But we were blessed by a group of people that came and discussed the issues without anger, without complaining of other people. It really showed the best of the residents of Dobbs Ferry, and for that, myself and I believe the rest of the board are very thankful. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jeff. Well said. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Village Hall. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2016. Just want to make a couple of announcements and give a brief outline of the meeting tonight. First, Trustees Golio, Trustee Rosillo, and Trustee Flynn are all excused from the meeting tonight, but you can see we've got a comfy little quorum here. We've all kind of moved together in which we can conduct the business of the village tonight, so we're good to go. I want to make just a couple of announcements here. As some of you may know, there is a waiting list developed for parking spaces, municipal parking lots, resident waterfront municipal, well, I'm not getting that right, commuter parking permits down at the waterfront. And there are, as of tonight, 45 residents of the community that are on that waiting list. We just want to announce tonight that those permits will be released tomorrow morning. So if you're watching or you're in the audience tonight, you can come to the police department window at, we think 7 a.m. would be a good time, and you can get your parking permit tomorrow. The police department is aware of all of you and where you are and has a phone number how to reach you. So if you can't get there tomorrow, they will be contacting you to let you know that your parking permit is available. I just want to add that with the release of these 45 spaces or permits, the parking lot will be, or the amount of permits sold will be about 22% over the maximum allowable spaces or spaces that we have there, which we think is a manageable amount. What's happening all up and down the line at every station in every town, it doesn't matter whether you've had a new building or not over the last couple of years, there are a lot more people commuting into the city. The MTA has statistics that back that up. The trains are a lot more crowded if you take the trains like I do every morning, and these parking places are getting filled up, and most of them, if not all of them, have waiting lists and or lottery systems now. We're doing everything we can to avoid that. I do want to note that we have, through the great help of neighbor Half Moon Restaurant, has allowed the village to utilize the northern annex of their parking lot. I think most of you are familiar with that. So you can use that space if you have a parking permit, commuter parking permit, you can use that space up until 7 p.m., which I think is a fair arrangement. Obviously later in the night is when they are concerned about their parking spaces and making them available. So we're monitoring the situation very, very closely. There is an item that we will talk a little bit about tonight where we are looking to take steps to increase the capacity of parking at Waterfront Park, just some initial concepts and steps we're looking at. But we are certainly very, very aware of the demand for tickets, for permits right now, and we're staying, on this as best we can. So, but we're glad we'll be able to release those tickets tonight, and that should reduce the the waiting list, so we won't have any more on the waiting list. Okay, so that was the announcement I wanted to make. We're going to have couple of presentations tonight. We do have a finance motion, and we have a couple of really important matters that we're going to be taking on tonight and actions that we will be taking. We don't have any public hearings. We'll then get to courtesy of the floor. If you are here, and I know some of you here in the front row are here to continue discussions about the the residential permit parking program, we have some things to present to you tonight. So I know you want to talk about that, but if you could hold off until we get to that item, which is item number 2. Item number 2. So we'll get there fairly quickly. So appreciate that. But if you have anything else that you would like to address the board, anything that's on the agenda or not on the agenda, please come courtesy of the floor. Come to the mic, state your name and address for the record, and please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. We really appreciate it. So, start off here with some presentations tonight. You know, food is becoming a really big thing. The Food Network is big. There's a lot of food shows. We've got, well, talk about food. Dobbs Ferry. You know, we have the greatest restaurants in Westchester County. It's a big, big thing. And, you know, it's not just for old people now anymore. Little chefs with tremendous ambition are now taking over kitchens. And maybe someday they're going to be the ones that are running some of the new restaurants or newer restaurants here in Dobbs Ferry. But I'm sure all of you are familiar with the network shows and the Chopped shows, and there is now one that they started just a few years ago, episodes of Chopped Junior. These are younger kids that are showcasing their talents and seeking to make unforgettable meals from mystery ingredients under a ticking clock. They'll bring their unbridled energy, big personalities, and unstoppable originality, but only one can be the Chopped Junior champion. And wouldn't you know it, that we have in Dobbs Ferry a 7th grader who recently completed on the Food Network program Chopped Junior and was crowned national champion. And we are so proud. And, you know, we do recognize a lot of great things. People accomplish a lot of great things in Dobbs Ferry, particularly when we have kids in the school, whether it's a team or an individual that achieves, you know, a really incredible accomplishment. We do like to recognize it. And so we've asked Elizabeth Oakes to come tonight. She was crowned Chopped Junior champion for 2015. And before she starts and says something, I know she has, even you talk about someone who can work under pressure, a lot better than any of us can, that's for sure. But she had to make what was sort of, they called an adorable, ambitious recipe here, but I don't know how you do this, but the ingredients that she had to work with, she had to create an appetizer, or 4 contestants in, an appetizer, an entree, and then a dessert. And the appetizer ingredients were grilled cheese roll-ups, duck bacon, and trombone zucchini, and jawbreakers. The entree, salmon, avocados, cactus pears, and orange worm suckers. And the dessert was to be made from New York cheesecake, cherry drink, carrot jam, and pistachios. I mean, what an incredible challenge. And, you know, the other contestants, and I'm sure they were incredible, the other kids were sort of eliminated along the way, and Elizabeth was left standing as the champion. Elizabeth, we are so proud of you, and thanks for coming tonight. So what can you tell us about your experience on the Chopped Junior champion?
Yeah, going to Chop was kind of crazy because I never thought that, like, I've been hoping to be on that show since I was like 5 years old maybe, and and when I got on that show I was like, oh my goodness, like, that's amazing. I was so excited, and I was ready for it, and I worked really hard, I prepared for it, and being on the set there was a lot of pressure because there was like the clock and all the producers, but it was really awesome because, like, once you start getting cooking, once you get like in the zone, everything kind of like goes out. So you notice kind of everything, but like all the cameras in your face, they kind of go away. But it's still really cool because like being on TV and everything is awesome.
Well, I heard, and I did a little research on this, I think like 30 million people watch that show. And I understand, talking with your dad, that you are getting recognized going through airports now.
Yeah.
Like you're a celebrity.
Yeah, when I was traveling for February break.
So do you have any members of your family here tonight, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I brought my mom.
Hi, Mom. Well, I know Mom and Dad are very, very proud of you.
Yeah.
And so are we, and so is the whole
Thank
village of
you.
Dobbs Ferry. Now, you know, I'm thinking one day maybe you're gonna be a restaurant owner here in Dobbs Ferry.
That would be fun.
You know? I wanna ask you what your favorite restaurant is, because all of them are our favorite
In Dobbs
restaurants, right?
Ferry?
Well, if you wanna go there, you can, but you don't have to.
You're not asking.
Well, in Dobbs Ferry, I have to say my favorite restaurant is Sushi Mike's.
Oh, sushi.
And I think you said that on the show too, right? Or no, did you not?
I think in the Enterprise article.
Oh, in the Enterprise, that's right, yeah. That was a fantastic show. My son and I DVR'd that show, and we watched it together, and we really
Oh,
enjoyed
thank
it. You were great.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So Elizabeth, I do want to present with you from the Board of Trustees, the Village of Dobbs Ferry, a certificate of appreciation to Elizabeth Oakes with grateful recognition on behalf of Mayor Kinnett and the Village Board of Trustees for competing in the Food Network program, Chop Junior, and having all the right ingredients to be crowned as the 2016 Chop Junior champion. Congratulations, we want to present you with this, and I think everyone would like to shake your hand as you go by. Good stuff. And I did tell your mom too, Elizabeth, you don't feel like you have to hang around for the rest of this meeting.
Yeah.
But you might want to, it gets pretty exciting here sometimes. Okay, presentation number 2 is we have a presentation by Sabre Dobbs Ferry. This is related to revisions to site plan to the parking for the IPIC Theater, which is part of the redevelopment project that is ongoing now, specifically to remove parking from the roof to the basement, and this has been reviewed pretty extensively and recommended by the planning board. So we're here just to get the presentation as to sort of what the plan is, the idea. And Mr. Berger here is to do that. Just bring that one up, Marty.
I'm Marty Berger from Sabre Dobbs Ferry. Hello, Mayor and trustees. It's nice to be back in the newly decorated.
Yeah, you noticed.
boardroom. It was good. Also, I want to mention to you that we are doing quite well with our construction and having a very good relationship with the village's professional team, builders and building inspecting department, and the village managers have been extremely helpful and cooperative, hopefully as we have been as well. So clearly, if there's any issues or questions, there's an open dialogue and where to find us. We're here tonight to request the board to recommend public hearing, I believe, for the next, set the public hearing for the next session, which will involve the request to relocate the approved parking that's on top of IPIC to the basement area. The approval that we have has approximately 90 plus minus cars that are parked on the top of IPIC that are accessed via the adjacent parking deck. And because there's parking on top, we have a building parapet wall that protects it and blocks the visibility. And of course, we have lighting. It's not the most ideal scenario, but it's one that was workable and was approved. When I say it's not ideal from a building construction perspective, it's expensive, we'd rather have them elsewhere. And from the neighbor's sight lines, although we block it, it possibly could be seen, et cetera. So we took the time over the past 6 months or so to study it more, and we determined that with the grades, we would be able to access the basement of the IPIC using the same drive as we would the parking garage off of Livingston. So rather than go up to the roof, we would go down to the basement and then use the same elevator as we did before. So we think the benefits are in relocating approximately the same number of parking spaces from the roof to the basement is a shorter building, no lights, no parapet, no anything of that sort. And of course, we would adhere to the original approval, which required the screening of the rooftop equipment, which was previously approved as well. So I can show it to you on paper, but I know we're going to do it at the public session. But that's in general what we're requesting.
Sounds pretty straightforward, sounds like, and the planning board has looked at this already and has recommended
Yes, the
Sounds like an
planning board
improvement.
looked at it
Yep.
and gave it a positive referral. I believe we reviewed it with the building department and answered the few questions pertaining to drainage, et cetera, that were asked.
The planning board actually recommended waiver of the site plan. That's within their authority and your authority to do,
Okay.
meaning that they don't even need to consider it, go through detailed site plans because it's not necessary. So what you should do today is schedule a public hearing for the March, I think it's the 8th meeting, am I right on the dates?
Yeah, I wrote that down. March 8th is the next.
For a public
or-
hearing, there'll be plans submitted so you can see it, and you can consider whether you want to approve it or waive as the planning board did on that day.
Okay, and we'll have a resolution
Yep.
from the planning board.
Yes,
as such,
yes,
right?
it's done, yes.
To consider. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Berger?
Not at this time.
No,
Makes sense
good.
to me.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, so we need to take a motion. So I'll, at this point, then take a motion to set a public hearing for Tuesday, March 8th at 7:30 PM for the purpose of having a public meeting to discuss and consider changes related to the parking at the IPIC Theater as outlined by the developer and has been recommended by the planning board. That sounds pretty simple there. Is there a motion? Trustee O'Donnell, second. Trustee Cassell, all in favor? That passes with 4 ayes.
Thank you.
So we'll see you back here on March 8th.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, Marty. Okay, moving forward, we have a finance motion here tonight, but I want to give a little bit of a background. As most of you are aware, previous village administrator left for another opportunity sometime in April, late April of 2015, and during that period of time, we have been so very lucky here in Dobbs Ferry to have somebody in the form of Betsy Gilardi who stepped up and has essentially been the interim village administrator from that point through today. You know, when anybody leaves an important position, you know, it's always a possibility that it sort of shakes things up and people get concerned about it and staff get concerned about it. But Betsy did a tremendous job, and certainly it didn't hurt at all that there probably isn't anybody who knows Dobbs Ferry as well as Betsy does. Of course, she has served as the village chief of police for many years, the first female chief of police in Westchester County's history. And obviously, she was able to bring a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge and organizational and leadership skills to take the village staff and really all of us as residents and the board through the interim period, the transitional period. There were things that needed to be addressed after the departure of the previous administrator that you typically have. That Betsy has done an extraordinary job working with Jeff and the staff here in Village Hall to get things right. And it took a while for us to move through the process, which the next step we will get to talk about another incredible person that we're going to be bringing in is to, as a board, discussing what we thought was the best way forward. You know, this is a very important decision. A search committee was formed, and I do want to thank all the members of that search committee that did an incredible job interviewing very qualified people and filtering that down to 2 very qualified candidates that the Board of Trustees then spent a lot of time with. And we spent a lot of time as a board because we were not in agreement in terms of well, I shouldn't say we were not, we had different ideas and opinions about what was the best way forward. So we had a lot of meetings, we spent a lot of time, which is a good thing to make sure at the end of the day that you're getting to a point where all 7 of us can be 100% behind whatever the decision is, and it took us time to sort of listen to each other's opinions about that and hear each other out. And we got there, and I thought that was a really good process. And then once we got to that process, which took a little longer than we thought, the person that we really were focused on needed a little bit extra time to give notice as well. So the bottom line is we had come into this thinking that it would be a certain amount of time that we would have Betsy do this job, but we went beyond that time. We went actually about 3 months beyond it. And so what we're considering tonight is essentially to pay a special compensation to Betsy Gilardi for the 9 months that she performed the interim village manager, and she's going to continue to perform that until sometime in early April, at a rate of $10,000 a month, which is a deep discount to the residents of Dobbs Ferry. And it has been money very, very well spent. At the end of the day, for this particular fiscal period, the work that Betsy did and the compensation that Betsy will receive and the new person and the combination, the taxpayers will end up actually saving a significant amount of money this year. But, you know, that's not the most important thing. It's the job that people do in keeping things together. So we're going to consider a motion here to compensate Betsy for the work that you did. And I'm going to ask for a motion, and maybe we'll have some other discussion about it, but that's just for the benefit of the residents and what we're considering here and sort of a little bit of the background. So at this time, I'll take a motion to grant interim village administrator Betsy Gilardi $10,000 a month for the current fiscal period as a special compensation for the work that she did as interim village administrator. Is there a motion? Trustee O'Donnell, second. Trustee Corrales. Discussion?
I just really want to thank Betsy for an amazing job of stepping in when we really needed it. And you have done a just absolutely tremendous job. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I second that, Betsy. You've been terrific. There's been a lot of stuff that's come up. You know, we've worked very hard on things, and you've done a terrific job. In addition, you were still the chief of police, so you really had your hands full, and we're very, very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. I've learned a lot from you in my short time here, so thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy. All in favor of the motion? That passes with 4 ayes. Thank you. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about another special person, and I kind of went through part of that process, but we are going to consider tonight the appointment of Charlene Indelicato as village administrator of Dobbs Ferry for a term of 1 year. All this, well, you know, it's got to be revealed, so we lay it all out there for a salary of $170,000, effective April 4th, 2016. And which, in case for this motion tonight, will be authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Ms. Indelicato on terms and conditions approved by the attorney for the Village Labor Council and the Board of Trustees. As I think I gave a little bit of background, this has been a very long process, and we've come to a unanimous decision that Charlene is absolutely the best person to become the next village administrator of Dobbs Ferry. She has a tremendous resume that's relevant to what we do here and what will be expected of her. She currently is president and executive director of Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation, which is a big entity. You all know where that is. It's about the size of Dobbs Ferry in terms of population. Her responsibilities there include implementing strategic goals and objectives in unison with the board of trustees of that corporation, responsible for the executive, administrative, and operational functions of that corporation, and she's responsible for the maintenance, upkeep of the island's roadway systems, open space, sports fields, and this all sound familiar? Yeah, a lot of stuff that we do here at Dobbs Ferry. She served as the Mount Vernon Commissioner of Planning and Community Development. She was Westchester County's top attorney for 10 years, an incredible resume, incredible experience in the things that she has dealt with that we will, as a village, from time to time have to deal with as well going forward. She was town council, Village of Mamaroneck, and she was city manager, City of New Rochelle, for several years as well. So just a really strong, really strong resume from a professional standpoint. Local kid, all right, Pace University Law School, spent a lot of time, St. John's, educated. I mean, just doesn't get better. So we're not going to appoint. We're going to look for the motion tonight to approve the contract. We will not be appointing Charlene formally tonight. We'll do that at her start date. But we do want to take the action, and I think I know what direction this is going. Then we'll ask Charlene to come and say hello and introduce herself to the community. So anyway, the motion is to appoint Charlene Indelicato as village administrator on the terms that I had outlined. Is there a motion? Trustee Casale, second. Trustee O'Donnell, discussion? All in favor? And that passes with 4 ayes. And I do want to say this, I can never say how any other trustee would vote. But I can tell you that without exception, we unanimously look forward to working with Charlene Indelicato, everybody, including those who are not here tonight. So Charlene, can I ask you to come to the mic and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Charlene Indelicato, and I find this a privilege and an honor to work for Dobbs Ferry. It may have taken a long time, but it was worth it for me because I sat down with each and every trustee, president and not president, and talked to them about their priorities, about their thoughts, their visions for the village. I have to say, although I'm an island, I'm Roosevelt Island, your waterfront is very much more expansive and prettier and beautiful. I mean, you really did a good job. But other than that, the thoughts and the concerns of the mayor and the board really sort of brought me back to Westchester, remembering my roots, because really, as a village, as a city manager, as a county attorney, that's where I really love to be. I live in Westchester. My old job, or my present job that I will soon leave, although was challenging, I mean, we did Cornell, I miss Westchester. I miss the give and take of a locality. I miss the open door, and yes, I was told that then they present a problem because everybody will be coming in. But I like that. I like working with the residents and hearing what they need. And I know that the board and the mayor, that is their ultimate and primary concern. They're not making a hell of a lot of money out of this. And they come in and after work, they interview me a number of times. They sit with me personally during the day. That takes a dedication. And I think all communities should be very proud, but I think in particular the village of Dobbsbury really does have some dedicated people. I am going to fill some really good shoes, and I don't mean that literally, I mean figuratively. Betsy has been very gracious. We've talked a number of times. In fact, she was on the committee to hire. So we had that first impression of each other, and it was a very good impression for me. I believe that she has done an outstanding job, and I don't know whether I could have done two jobs. I mean, she did her village administrator and carried a gun.
Which helps us village administrator.
Part of her success, perhaps.
But I look forward to working with all of you, and especially with the board and mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlene.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you. We will have a formal swearing-in ceremony. We will announce that. That'll obviously be noticed. And I would mention that Charlene spent a fair amount of time with Betsy today, and we are heavily into the budgeting process, which is a 24/7, 365 process here in Dobbs Ferry. But Betsy will be very much involved in helping Charlene in the transition, and certainly as we're going through the peak of our budget season right now. And so it's all good, and we look forward to seeing you back here soon. Thanks, Charlene. And thank you again, Betsy. Okay, moving to courtesy of the floor. Anybody wish to address the board? Yes, Patty.
Good evening, Patty Steinschneider, 329 Broadway. I'm here tonight to complain about something. Usually not. I mean, when have I ever come to complain, right? It's something we've been talking about for a lot of years. It's the situation on Broadway where we have a couple of crossings that just aren't safe. Friday night, pulling out of my driveway, heading up Broadway, traffic going both ways, so I have to be concerned about the cars. If Debbie didn't shout, yikes, I wouldn't have locked up. Bunch of kids running down Clinton Avenue just ran right across the crosswalk. They assume you can see them, but I didn't see them. And if I hadn't, I just locked up and luckily didn't hit anybody. But there's a real problem there. I know you guys are aware of it. I know you've been working hard trying to find solutions. I think we need to move that up. I think we've never really talked about so much before. We've talked about getting some kind of a signalization thing that would tell people when somebody's in the crosswalk. That sounds like it's something we can do. We've talked about changing the crosswalk, the design. We also need better lighting. The very high lights do a good job maybe of illuminating the road, but they do a bad job of illuminating the crosswalk. So I think what we need to do is work on that. I'm willing to do that. I've already done some sketches and drawings for it. So I think we just need to up our game. We need to get the committee back together from South Presbyterian and see what we need to do to make this happen faster. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. You want to say anything?
Patty, I can
I
tell you,
think we
we've
have
been in
some,
touch with New York State DOT. Actually, Gary and I have met with them twice, and we are working on perhaps a signalized crosswalk at that location where you would push the button and the lights would begin to flash. However, that is not going to happen immediately. It's going to take, you know the state, it's going to take a little bit of time. Additionally, we just spoke to Lumen Lighting today. You've probably realized, you've seen the new LED lights around town. So the lights right at the top of Oak Street and the one further north are going to have a higher wattage. So that area will be brighter, and we just spoke with them today about that. So that'll be happening within the next couple of days.
That's great. Anything I can do to help? Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Patty.
Thanks.
Anybody else care to address the board? Yes.
Good evening, Neil Sweeting, 27 Luzerne. Kind of a traffic issue again, the new lights out on Ashford Avenue. As a resident who comes down LaFergie Avenue every morning, I'm very appreciative of that traffic light. I'm trying to make a left-hand turn. So I know there's some issues, but there's 2 points that I think that, you know, maybe we could improve that a little bit more. The timing coming out of LaFergie and out of Ogden is very short. And I know it's timed out on Ashford Avenue, that's the priority, but you don't have, I counted the other day, you only have 12 seconds to get out of LaFergie Avenue. And if you're, you know, 5 or 6 cars back, sometimes you don't make it. So you could sit there for a very long time. And I've watched people get frustrated making a left-hand turn through the light because they can't do it. It's really frustrating for people that want to make the right on red and are stuck behind several cars. So if there's anything maybe on the timing. But another issue that I see that's contributed to some problems there is the location of the county bus stops. They're stuck between the 2 lights.
Yeah.
If you're going westbound towards the village, there's a stop right at the corner of LaFergie. If you're heading eastbound towards Ardsley, there's a stop at Ogden Avenue. If there's a bus going towards Ardsley east and then stops at the corner, and then he's stuck there, and then people can't get out of LaFergie, or if it's going the other way, they can't get out of Ogden. And then, because traffic can't get past the bus, so now you're sitting at another set of cycles at that intersection. If there's any way that we could potentially work with County DOT to relocate those stops outside the, you know, further down, I don't know,
Well,
where the exact location.
The day we activated the lights, Kevin Roseman was in, it's something that we did speak about, and he was going back to county transportation to hopefully move those stops further
East or
west
Outside of the
and
block,
further east.
outside of that block, yeah.
Right.
I think that would-
That's in the works.
okay.
As far as the timing, I don't think they'll do anything with the timing until we start the Ashford Avenue Bridge and we see how that's
Yeah,
going
it's
to
just,
affect.
you know, so if you just got those buses out, moved out, that would help get people because they get stuck. That's all.
Thanks, Dean, that's really,
Yeah.
really positive input there. I know we've sent the traffic consultant from Mazer, Greeley's been down there a couple of times. He actually mentioned in his last report that
Yep.
buses stopping in between there, as Neil mentioned, so.
Right.
AJ, yeah.
AJ, excuse me, AJ Dobbs, 38 Livingston Avenue. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, thank you. I just had sort of a strange question, and this is as a former full-time commuter, but, pardon me, as a real estate broker, I find it interesting that we had a waiting list for parking spaces at the train station when we're selling additional non-resident parking passes to Ardsley. I'm all for being friendly and wonderful and warm and cozy with the local villages, Hastings, Hastings, Ardsley, Irvington, but I have had people that I've sold properties to complain to me, why can't I get a parking pass, but people from Ardsley can? And I think that's an incredibly valid point. I was here at the last meeting, and I don't remember the prices that were discussed for the permits. I know they're a little bit more expensive at Ardsley, for Ardsley, double or triple, which is great. But I think that if there aren't enough parking for our own residents, it really is hard to justify selling them at a premium to people outside of our town. And I don't commute, as I'm sure all of you know who I am and what I do, but I find that really, really hard to accept as a resident and as someone who's bringing a lot of important people, I think important people into the village, where they're told that they can't park their car. They come from another village. I just thought I would bring that to your attention with full respect, but I think it's something we have to question ourselves. And then I say to myself, if I was commuting, I think it's almost worth charging each of the commuters $5 more to make up the difference that you would be charging all these people from other towns to make up the difference in income. And I just, my internal thought that, but it's hard to justify, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, AJ. Really good comments and things we've obviously thought about. It's a puzzle, and it's, you know, you try to find the right balance. And there's a lot of new things that are happening at the waterfront park, and this increased surge in demand. It has nothing to do with any houses that you're selling or any development projects that have been approved. It's just more people are buying these permits, and kind of maybe catches you by surprise. But we're certainly thinking about that. And there's a way that we might be able to adjust that at some point soon. But it will cost you, just so you know, it'll cost more than $5.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the other side of it that we have to look at too. So if we do that, I can guarantee you, not you, but somebody else will be up here next year saying, why are you charging me so much for parking? Or why are my taxes, you know, that whole thing. So, but we're very aware of the situation, and I don't disagree with you at all. We are trying to find the right solution there.
And by the way, I think you walked in after the mayor's announcement that we're releasing permits to those who are on the waiting list.
I did hear
Okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah, I did hear
I just
that,
wanted to make sure you
which
heard
is
that.
Great. Which
Okay.
is great, thank you.
But it doesn't mean that
Doesn't mean
we
it's
won't
not
have
an
a-
issue, but.
another waiting list starting tomorrow, you know what I mean? So, but we're watching it very, very closely, and we'll get there. Thanks for those comments. Yes, sir.
Actually, I have a comment on the residential parking law. Should I go now?
Actually, we're going to address that, actually,
Sorry, wait.
yeah, so if you could hold off on that, and then we'd be happy to hear from you, for sure.
Hi, Laura, out on Broadway. This has nothing to do with the Broadway thing now. Before, when you were speaking about the lights that were just installed by Ogden and Fergie, I actually drive over to the Turing Estate every morning to walk my dogs from London to West Broadway. And so I get caught up in those lights and that traffic. And one thing I noticed, and it's happened a few times, I don't know who manages the crossing guards, but it's happened to me where we've been waiting, the light turns, and then the crossing guard decides to stop the traffic on Ashford and let the kids cross, which I think is fine, but I think you're not teaching the children that they should have to wait for the light. And you're also it's already so congested on that road. So my question is, who controls those people, the crossing guards? And is it correct that when it's a green light for the people on Ashford, he should be stopping the traffic and letting the kids cross? That's my question.
Well, I don't control him, but he works for me, and I will speak to him about it. It's a new light for him, and I'm sure he's just never had to deal with it before. Okay.
Lee?
Good evening, Mayor and board members. Lee Constantine Stanley. I just want to talk a little bit about the parking and safety. The current parking on Stanley is non-compliant according to Article 4, Section 290-28 on-street parking restriction that lists Stanley as no parking on both sides per local law 9-2012. In September 2012, by unanimous vote, parking on Stanley was rescinded for many reasons, primarily for safety. Mr. Serrano stated that it was recommended by the police chief and agreed by the village traffic engineer. The videotape can be reviewed on September 20th, 2012, at minutes 250. As a refresher, Stanley parking was never permitted. However, AXO did not allow the sports club members to park in their lot. Property owner requested the village to permit parking on Stanley and Livingstone, which was granted by the village on a temporary basis. After a few years, there was no longer a need for parking since the owners made a parking agreement. During the parking period, it was problematic due to cars queuing for Starbucks, causing parkway backups, and other cars creating their own lane on Stanley by going around the queuing cars and passing too close to the parked cars when people were exiting, entering their car. It posed safety hazards. Another safety problem noted by the engineer was pedestrians were exiting their cars and crossing anywhere, and the street was being used as park and ride. During the public hearing, the issue of enforcement was raised, but according to Mr. Serrano, it was not practical for the parking enforcer to travel from one side of the village to the other. He also noted vehicles were double parking while waiting for spaces to vacate, therefore backing up traffic, even though there were empty spaces in the lot. Even though the code clearly states parking is prohibited, and despite a no parking sign, there are cars parked there. Currently, cars are traveling to the end of Stanley and going the wrong way on a one-way. According to the findings of January 23rd, during construction, Stanley would remain open for access to Chauncey and the residents, but not through traffic. At this time, there was no reason to have through traffic past the sports club, whereby people are turning around and traveling the wrong way. The roundabout is the alternative. River Towns did not request parking at the time of their application, as they had no need for it because their proposal was always in surplus of the code requirement. The updated June 2014 proposed striping plan depicts parking stripes, and according to the legend, Stanley parking spaces are designated as existing spaces. This is probably because when the architects originally drew the plans, they sketched in existing conditions such as curb lines, fences, signs, etc. And it appears they carried over the same drawings without the updated code. Since there was permissible parking then, it is probable that the developers did not realize, at least on paper, that there was no longer permitted parking. There was no discussion, public hearing, and no approval for parking by the board. The findings notes pocket parking on Livingstone. The sim animations of February 2013 and also presented in 2015 shows there are no parking stripes and no parked cars on Stanley, but it shows parked cars on Livingstone. The unsafe reasons parking was banned would still exist if parking was allowed. And it would be worse because there will be theater traffic in pluses at once. The road will be two ways and cars will squeeze by on a narrower lane, and as people exit and enter their vehicle, they will be in jeopardy of their door themselves being sideswiped. Pedestrians will cross at any point in the road regardless of a crosswalk and run the risk of being hit. Without parking meters, park and ride will be reinstituted. Any type of enforcement will consist of the enforcer traveling back and forth, otherwise the village will have to hire another enforcer. It is unclear why parking is present on Stanley, but it's clear that developers did not request it and that the project's approval was not a condition of it. The findings confirm there are sufficient cross-parking easements that was conditional to the board's approval, and there is no parking waiver variances for the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Anybody else care to address the board? Ma'am, do you want to go? No, you good? Over here there was one, I thought? Everybody's good, okay. Thank you very much for your comments. Moving on to matters requiring action. Action item number 1 was to consider an environmental determination of significance, unlisted and no adverse environmental impact for the potential expansion of additional parking spaces for the waterfront parking lot. Just a quick little background here. The idea here is to look at the idea of creating potentially approximately 50 new parking spaces at the waterfront park commuter lot, essentially in the area that is village-owned property running north of the lot, just west of the railroad tracks and just before the field there. and that runs all the way up to 145 Palisade. The village engineer has looked at that property, has also had discussions with the New York Department of Conservation, as well as the MTA, which are two entities that would need to be involved with any final decisions or proposals that might be pursued. But basically, there could potentially be 50 new spaces at an angle going north with a turnaround all the way at the north end. It's pretty significant. And it is village-owned property. So it would seem to make sense for us, at least let's think about it and think what would be involved. So that's what we're doing. That was as a first step. One of the things that we have to consider is what are the environmental impacts? You know, it's on the waterfront, near the waterfront. We have an LWRP that, you know, dictates what we can and can't do, although we do feel this falls into the interest of the LWRP. There's, you know, soil there. We had to cap the soil because, as all of you, most of you know, it was the village dump many, many years ago. So there's issues with fill and when you remove things. So we don't think that there are any particularly intense environmental concerns or issues, but there may be some. So we are considering whether or not we would simply just need to do, you know, basically a short environmental impact statement, which the village could partake on its own. But what we're thinking here is, because of where it is, and we do want to look at this as a priority, the idea here is we may want to consider referring this to the Conservation Advisory Board and to our Waterfront Parking Lot Committee, just to give them a heads up. I have given a heads up to the chair of the Friends of the Waterfront, Marie McKellar, just so she knew we were talking about that. She was fine with that. But just to have another couple set of eyes to look at this, and particularly the Conservation Advisory Board, and to make sure, Darius, that we are going at this with the right forms, and if we're not missing anything. So
that's one thing. It's going to be an
sort of
environmental assessment form, not an impact statement. Just so
environmental assessment, and that's an important distinction.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the thought process. So any other comments or ideas from the board? But I think that makes the most sense to pursue that first and refer it to the CAB, which will meet in a couple of weeks, I think. And we'll refer this also to the Waterfront Parking Committee.
Yeah.
And we'll bring this back in a couple of weeks with a more clearer idea of what we really need to do. And at least we'll be certain what we need to do.
Yep.
So that's that. So we're essentially tabling it until then, okay? Action item number 2 is the discussion of amending provisions of local law 1-2016 for new residential parking permits. Okay. So this we've been, as many of you know, and I know there's some residents here have a great concern about this. The village adopted a new residential parking permit law several weeks ago, modifying and making additions to Chapter 290 under Home Rule Law that created a residential parking zone, in which case residents who reside on those very specific streets within that residential parking zone can acquire permits to park there. And essentially the rule, the home rule that we pursued was to really eliminate, to the degree we could, outside commuters that are using our local streets to park and then commute into the village, into the city. And the law seems to have had that positive impact. But like anything, when you do something, you push things around, you can't know all of the consequences. And we have found that there are groups of people, and particularly in one particular location, which has a Broadway address, but really kind of fronts Hatch Terrace, it's been a real issue for them. So, but we think we've been kicking around some ideas on this, and we've had discussions with the residents, we've been taking input from other residents who are also very interested in this law, and we think we might have a way forward. And so we were going to talk about that a little bit tonight, right? Yeah. So if we have a sort of an outline here, and then we'll take comments and kick it around together and see if this makes sense.
Okay, I'll give a little background on where we're headed. The thought process is that some of the properties, including 191 Broadway, residents were not able to park on certain times. Obviously an issue. Other locations also. So the thought process the board is considering is to change the not change the residential parking zone, but actually limit that a little more and remove a few streets, including Draper Lane, and have Cedar Street only from Main to Palisade. But the eligible residents would be increased to allow properties with frontage on the streets that are allowed to, are within the zone, and which are ineligible for the central business district permits. One of those, our interpretation, the board's interpretation, that would be that 191 Broadway would be then eligible for the residential parking permits, because there is frontage along Hatch Terrace, and you are not eligible for the central business district permits. May affect a few other properties, we're still analyzing that, but the plan will be to amend the law. We will have a public hearing at the next meeting. We will post it in the paper so everyone can see the law. We will discuss it, but that's the thought process of the board at the next meeting to do that, which would make, you know, your residents eligible.
So essentially, I think it's modifying the definition of the parking, the residential parking zone, and eliminating some streets that have access to central business district meters.
Right.
And we feel that that's the issue with Hatch, that you don't have access to that, and that's a very big distinction. Some could argue that it's not, but we think it is an important distinction. Now, as part of the public hearing, we might also consider expanding, we might be considering expanding central business district as well.
Yeah.
Which could have some benefits for some other people too, but again, not take away from what we're trying to do for Hatch, for the situation that you have with the Broadway address. So that's the idea, and we think it makes sense, and we think it's defendable, and it won't be without some controversy. It's like anything. I think we try to, we're really trying to address the downtown parking issues, as everybody knows, and we're not perfect. Every decision we make isn't going to be perfect, but when we make a decision that has a cause and an effect, we got to address that next thing, and that's what we're trying to do here. So we really do appreciate your concerns and the burden that you have now. We're trying to correct it. So this is kind of the way we think best to do that, and then I'll let anybody else on the board, make some other comments about it. And then we'll take your comments.
I was just going to suggest maybe we should also talk about what we might propose at the next hearing in terms of central business district, because it could also impact the way people feel about this residential parking program. Did you want to touch on that?
Perhaps before we get into that, I wanted to thank you for the cogent comments and coming to us in a respectful way and coming up with some good ideas in terms of how to do things. And, we thank you very much for that and giving us the time it takes to try and sort out this. We realize it's a burden on you, but these things don't happen overnight, unfortunately, and we got to figure out if all of a sudden, there's 3,000 other people that are going to get qualified. So, thank you.
And I know some people talked about creating other parking zones, but that then brings us into having to deal with the state again. So that's one of the reasons we were looking at a broad interpretation of addresses on those streets. But at the same time, the central business district is prime parking area. And that's why I think that the difference in the fees, you got you can park all day at a meter, you'll have these different areas that are dedicated just to that. And again, because it's prime, there's a fee, additional fee that kind of has to go with that. So people think it's the difference in the residential and the central business district. I know there may be some people have concerns about that, but there is a price parking issue that we're looking at also.
So that's the approach that we're considering, and as Trustee Corrales suggested, the idea would be that we would set up a public hearing to amend this portion of the village code, chapter 290, to redefine and amend the residential parking permit law. So we redefine the zone, and then we would also look under this public hearing to increase parking within the central business district, because we think that also we could address at the same time, sort of, two birds with one stone.
Yeah, the zone isn't changing.
No, the zone isn't
remains
changing.
the same, that's
Right.
what we have to
Eligibility.
do,
But it's the eligibility
Right.
within the zone. And we do think that there's a distinction to be made where you're located. So,
And there was also a concern for some residents on other streets as well, such as Livingston Ave. And so one of the things that we'd be looking at would be increasing the scope of the central business district. And maybe Betsy, you could speak a little bit to that as well.
The central business district would require meters on some of the streets that we talked about, Livingston Avenue. We would have to install some meters there, at least 2-hour meters, blue meters. Perhaps some meters on the lower portion of Walnut Street. And then again, we would have to bring the code into compliance, the 290-27 and 290-34 central business district and residential parking permits. We have to bring that. So that could be part of the public hearing as well. So not only the residential, but the central business district.
Yeah, so it may address not just your issues, but a couple other issues that cropped up as we looked at this residential parking law, so.
yes, Laura. Sorry.
Hi, Laura, from 91 Broadway. I really, for our building and for everyone else in the village that are residents and have been affected by this law, I thank you for really working with us and helping us out. One of the questions that came up was in our building, actually, we have a few people that have like healthcare and babysitters and stuff like that. Or if you have somebody visiting you for a week, is there a temporary permit that they would buy to park in the area, or how does that work and how does that affect them? It doesn't.
I think if you're handicapped, if they're designated.
Not handicapped, but I
Oh,
mean,
okay. You're outside of it if you're handicapped, right?
like if you have somebody coming over from PT, physical therapy,
Oh, I see, yeah.
or if you have, say you're.
They can
They still
park,
can park.
for the 4 hours.
They can park for 4 hours, they
Yeah.
just have to move their car.
And
After
visitors,
4 hours.
and they're allowing we have visitor passes if
Oh,
you
we do?
can,
Okay.
yeah, I believe we're doing that, right?
Well, we didn't.
I thought that we were
discussed
doing
it,
that
but we didn't
administratively.
determine, I don't know how you.
So that could
That's
just be
still-
something
that's
else.
still something
that
to
you
work
might
on.
wanna think about.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're going through this process,
Yeah,
it's a question that came up.
Mhm.
but people can park for 4 hours there. so.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's an in-law watching an infant, do they go running outside every 4 hours and pack the kids, that kind of thing? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Take them to the park.
I'm just asking.
No, you're not the only one who's brought that up.
Yeah,
In
I
prior
mean,
hearings,
it's
we
something
discussed that as
Yeah.
well.
Consider that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
we could think about that.
Yeah, come up with something.
Anybody else from the group?
At least 3 over there, too.
Okay, and then some over there, right?
Tom Packard, 191 Broadway. I think there's been a lot of discussions tonight about traffic. New places down by the waterfront, all the traffic issues in this town. And also, the Ardsley people parking here, et cetera, et cetera. Well, those people have learned that Broadway is the place to park. You can still park there. You can still go to the city. You guys don't control that, if I understand correctly. Okay, so that street is now packed wall to wall. And so if those of us who do work in that building, because when I'm not in the city or someplace else, that's where my office is. The few spaces on Hatch, there may be 30 there. I don't even know how many apartments there are in this building, like 50, you think?
No, on Hatch?
Yeah,
Maybe
25.
on both sides. Well, anyway, we don't need to worry, but we know that there's quite a number of apartments there. And those 30 or odd spaces, if we can't park, like now or in the previous, a lot of times when I'd come home, there'd be no place to park. I'd park on, what's the next one, Walnut, I think, on the thing down there. There are like 4 or 5 houses there. They all have driveways. There's 5 cars on that street now. Can we expand?
You can park at any of the residential
Because
streets.
we've talked about Hatch, but we haven't, so that's my question. When you talk about Hatch being our street.
No.
Does that mean I can only park?
No, you can park in any of the
Thank
residential
you,
streets.
you made my night.
Yeah, so you can park in Palisades, you can park on Walden, you can park in Elm
Excellent.
Oak, and, yeah.
You made my night.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Raquel Spitzer, 73 Main Street, on the corner of Chestnut. I know why my mind always blanks when I come up here, but the issue is with the parking that's available for the Main Street residents is that there's a discrepancy of $90. The residents in the surrounding areas can purchase a permit for $25, and living on Main Street, it's $115. That's a lot for me, for a lot of people who live here. What are the options? Can the Main Street residents have access to a $25? I mean, it just feels like something has to be done for us. I know.
No, you have a point.
You have a point, yeah.
I mean, I think one could argue that you have access to, you say pricing points, right? The best
Parking
parking
lots,
spots and
yeah.
the parking lots, the municipal lots that you have access to. What we're trying to do is to clear up a problem that was, external, commuters coming in and just creating more parking in general for people that live in the downtown and work in the downtown, and it's.
And Main Street should be included in that, no?
Well,
It can't be.
It can't be under the.
Under the law, the
under
state
the
law.
The state law, the program that we were trying to utilize to take care of the biggest problem that everybody had, which was the commuters that were using up all the spaces.
Was the state law concocted by the board?
No, but the New York State has certain restrictions as to what can be designated residential parking. And Main Street, City Street, they all have meters, et cetera, et cetera. We can't do, like Broadway, we had no control over Broadway.
But we asked for
You have-
Cedar, Main, and Broadway, and the state
Yes.
said no.
And they said no.
What about a pricing differential, a tiered program for Main Street residents that offer a lower pricing? Because we're not businesses, we're paying a high price to live in this town. I've been here for 5 years, I don't have a spot that's allocated to my lease. Obviously, Broadway is an issue for everybody else who lives in that area, and I don't go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, I go at 3, which means it's very inconvenient for me, it's very inconvenient for a lot of people in Main Street. I think that there needs to be another consideration. Something else worked out, because the opposite side of the street parking for the blue meters, 2 blocks away for the municipal parking behind here and the parking on Cedar. It's a little too far in crappy weather for people who have children or things to carry. It's very inconvenient, and I wish you guys would think about it a little further. Last time I was here, you guys were talking about the corners maybe being included. I don't know if that's enough, and I don't know if it's even going to happen.
We're considering we're considering all of that, but we understand your concerns and your point.
Okay.
Well taken, yes.
Should I write letters to Neil Lowy and everybody else?
You can if you want to. This is for us, I think, to figure out. It's a local law, so.
Yeah.
Writing letters to us would be more,
Appropriate.
Yeah.
well, more effective.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I guess it's all right like this. My name is Tom Clearston. I live at 70, my wife and I live at 70 Livingston Avenue. It's the second house in, it's almost at the corner of Walnut and Livingston. And basically, we're as close to the train station as about anybody. I mean, people on Palisades have meters there, but for a non-metered place, we're there. as close as anybody. Under the new regulation, I can't get a sticker because I'm told the state won't allow residents of Livingston Avenue to have one.
No.
Effectively, we're non-residents as far as residential parking is concerned. I found a place I can park. It's quite a trek. I mean, I basically can park all day. I have to find a place way outside the district where, you know, there's space that's still available. Occasionally, Broadway is available, but as the gentleman was saying, it's packed. I've been in contact with the board. I've actually been appealing for relief since September when I first figured it out. And I was told that the state won't allow Livingston to be included, and that it'd be a violation of state law to give me a special sticker to allow me to park at, say, where I used to park just a few feet from my house around the corner on Walnut. Well, the new information, I've conveyed this information before, but something I haven't said is that in these months I've been in touch with the State Representative Aminanti's office about this, through his assistant, whose name is Elisa Jacobs. And I can report, I've gone over the wording, so I want to report the wording as I wrote it down. I went over this wording with her. And the wording is that the state left to the village how to apply the law. There's no desire of the state, no intent, no practice that would prevent the village from making exceptions, including special stickers. Furthermore, Tom Avenatti, call him Tom, I've only spoken to him indirectly, but he invites you to confirm this by calling the office, and that's at 914-631-1605. Preferably talk to himself about it, and for that matter, anybody else who's been damaged by this situation. That's 914-631, it's a camera, 1605. And confirm that information for yourself. The only other piece of information, reluctantly, I finally retained counsel on it. I feel that I have to protect my property value. And I've been trying, and so far without success. Thank you very much for speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Yes, sir.
Maybe you want to talk about how one of the plans is for Livingston Avenue, to have that be part of the central business district, where you could get, well, then we're telling you.
Yeah, okay.
To be part of the central business district as part of the revised law, like I think the chief just indicated, so then you could get a central business district permit.
And there would be meters.
And there would be meters there, but you wouldn't have to feed the meter because you'd be eligible for a central business district sticker.
Right in front of your house.
And therefore you wouldn't be,
Right
have
for
a
your
problem
house,
with
yeah.
parking. You wouldn't have to even park on Chestnut.
Yeah, that's one of the items that we mentioned we're going to consider at the next public hearing. Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Martin Frank. I live at 100 Cedar Street, also known as the Village Green. And I apologize if I repeat something that's been discussed here before. I'm new to this. I found out a few days ago to this law. Specifically, me and my family, we live in Building 1, which is the first one located near the corner of Draper and Cedar, just slightly east of Palisade. And we actually have two cars, like quite a few families, I think, in that location. But we have access to one parking spot within the Village Green. One car can be parked, the other one cannot. Now, when reading the local law as it's currently written, it would seem that such a location should qualify because it's on Cedar, between Main and point 750 feet west of Main. However, I went to the police and spoke to two officers actually, and they both told me that it has been decided, and they didn't know by whom, it has been decided that the Village Green does not qualify for the residential parking permit. 100 Cedar does not qualify. So they referred me to the village clerk, who referred me back to the police. It seems to me that this is not in line with the probably intent of the law, because the nearest parking spot for our second car would be outside the residential and the business district, Broadway or beyond, as it is currently. So I would hope you would consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we are considering for Draper Lane will be part of the discussion in terms of, that might become more of a downtown business district area. which you'll have access to those meters, which would be though different from the residential parking permit zone. And so it would be the same issue perhaps that the other lady here had in terms of the discrepancy. I think that's kind of where we're considering or
Also
thinking
is the
for that particular.
potential new lot on the old DPW, which is right there for you.
So,
Yeah.
there, go ahead.
Would you be able to clarify how it was decided that 100-seater is not currently considered part of the new zone?
I think ultimately the law is proposed to be changed to specifically, if there's a problem, interpreted to have it not be, to read Cedar from Maine to Palisade. The thought process was, correct me if I'm wrong, is Village Green now would be eligible for central business district permits?
Yes.
And there is a plan in place down by the old DPW site to add 20-something spaces. That would, so it should, we're trying to alleviate everywhere.
Sure.
There's problems on 191, there's problems on Livingston, there's problems on where you are. And I think once they all come together in the next few weeks, and ultimately construction down by your place, you should, hopefully it solves every problem. That's the plan. We understand there's a problem with an issue for Village Green. I think the board understands that there's an issue for Livingston, which they're gonna address by having it be eligible for central business district. There's an interpretation issue for 191. The price, I think, Trustee Cassell indicated was the reason because of the prime spots. You know, $115 is a lot of money, but
That's for the year.
for the year.
$10 a month, less
For
than
the year.
$10 a month.
$10 a month is pretty good. So you know, I think your interpretation is something that we're clearing up, but there are going to be alternatives for you to park, and hopefully for everyone in Village Green to have a spot on the street.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else care to address the board? Patty?
One more time.
Well, this person to be heard before, now I'm talking about the parking. There are three things that I've been thinking about in this. One is that on Oak Street, most of the houses have parking. So it's a street that we might want to look at having more of the blue meters, so that if we're expanding the business district parking, that seems like it could be a pretty good one, particularly for the apartment building at the corner of Cedar and Broadway, which they're eligible for the business district parking, and we're having a slight issue with Stop and Shop not wanting their lot to be used anymore for free by the residents. So that's one thing. The second thing is when we were working with Charlie Sutter and we were looking at this holistic idea of parking, one of the things I was asked to do is to measure Broadway and the distances of where there's parking, where there's not parking, where there could be parking. There's a very long strip of Broadway on the, I think it's technically, well, I'll just say it's the east side. It's the, you know, the other side from the river, although it's kind of where we changed direction. That there's a long strip there that there's no parking. And one of the things we're talking about doing for our safe routes to school is reducing one lane in both directions. So we may want to take a look at, can we create like 50, 60 parking spaces along in that strip, which I think would be very useful for 191, as far as other people who are having a tough time finding parking. So I think that's two. And the third, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if you've ever given thought to this, but we've got this municipal lot out back here, and, you know, somehow if we could put a deck on that. I know 10 years ago, we tried to talk about
That
it.
wouldn't be controversial at all, would it?
No.
I'm not sure I'm going there, man.
I look right out my windows, and I look right down on that,
That's
and I
for
look at
somebody
the
else to
parking
do.
lot now. I know 10 years ago, we talked about
Yeah.
this, we didn't move forward, but it's gotten more and more since then. And it might be time to take another look at that, at least to see whether it's something that would solve some of these problems.
It
Thanks.
may be, yeah. Okay, thanks, Patty. Yes, Mark?
Good evening, Maura Durasti, 138 Palisade Street. Patty, you don't take your rest. You need to take some rest. Really do. I just want
Imagine if I had your energy.
Listen, I'm like super mom. I just want to say that I'm very glad that there's some sort of resolution to some of the people that had issues as a result of the residential parking. I was very, very involved with that. And every time that I see the comments and everybody that it was suffering from, and it was really frustrating because I was like, now we are okay, but then other residents are not okay. I do hope that the plan that is in place is shared with the village residents in advance, so that when this public hearing is open, there is not a million questions that probably will be unnecessary. So everything that is being planned, if it can be shared with us in advance so that we can prepare any questions or any concerns, that will eliminate kind of like 4-hour meetings like we've been breaking the records lately. I know you like those. So I'm just very, very glad that there's some sort of resolution, because honestly there was a lot of people that have been suffering from it, and I do have to say it has been such a blessing for us, but then pain for other people. So I'm very glad that there's some resolution for you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Marla.
Mayor, what we can do is we will post it in the newspaper, which we have to, the enterprise, but for those that don't get it, we can provide it at Village Hall and even post it on the website if anyone wants to read it.
Right, and I'll send out a newsletter with the notice and very specifically what we will discuss, and what might even include the specific language.
Yeah.
So we'll be pretty well prepared. Okay, everybody, thank you for your comments. Really appreciate it. So I think on this one, what I'll do now is ask for a motion to schedule a public hearing. This will be to amend Chapter 290 of the Village Code, to amend the residential parking permit law, and to consider amending Chapter 290 in addition to increase parking within the central business district for Tuesday, March 8th at 7:30 p.m. here at Village Hall, March 8th, 2016, 7:30 p.m. We will properly notice this in the papers, and we will send out a notification to the residents. We post it on the village website as well as the mayor's newsletter ahead of time. Is there a motion? Trustee O'Donnell, second. Trustee Corrales, discussion? All in favor? And that passes with 4 ayes. So we'll see a lot of you back here on March 8th, and we will provide you information ahead of time so you know kind of what we're thinking and what we'll be presenting. And we'll get through this next time we meet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Action item number 3 is to discussion of the bid for request for an RFP to assess village park structures to Lothrop Associates LLP Architects in an amount not to exceed $19,000 as recommended by the building inspector Ed Manley. For the benefit of the board and for the benefit of residents, what we are considering here is to award this RFP, or at least have a discussion about it. The idea, the concept is, and we've been talking about this for a while, and it's part of sort of the balanced approach that this administration and board has been taking, and I believe we should continue to look at redevelopment projects in a way that we can generate additional revenues that then allow us, these revenues that particularly building the recreation building permit fees that go into the segregated recreation account, we have a plan to, or that we should have a plan to reinvest these monies. And that plan should be well thought. It should look at all of the village assets that we have. It should prioritize what our needs and requirements are as a village, be it for seniors programs, youth programs, or for the public at large. And basically, are we utilizing our assets to the best extent that we can, and can we improve our assets? Can we improve our buildings to offer better programming and increase and improve the quality of life for residents of Dobbs Ferry? So we are accumulating a significant amount of funds that are available in the recreation segregated account, close to $1 million, and that is growing. We have other access as a municipality, obviously, to additional funding. We have funding that could be potentially available from the Local Development Corporation as well, that could really allow the village to make significant improvements in our infrastructure, and particularly the assets that support village programs for youth and seniors and all of us. So the first step in this is to look at, basically the very first step is to assess the conditions of our buildings. As a lot of you know, a lot of the buildings in Dobbs Ferry are old, and this includes particularly the buildings that have serviced the youth and the senior programs, the recreation programs, including the Embassy Community Center, the Memorial Park building across the street, and the buildings in Gould Park. We're also doing work, not to jump too far ahead, but the ambulance corps building, which is a village asset, is in pretty bad shape. So what we're considering here as a first step in this process is we first need to assess the integrity of the buildings themselves, structurally, plumbing, et cetera, before you can start thinking about design and thinking about enhancing buildings and adding here or moving there. You need to know what you're dealing with to begin with and what your issues might be. So that is the first step in the process. So what we are considering here, the village did send out an RFP. Two professional organizations did respond to very, very well-known and qualified organizations. The building department has reviewed and assessed the bids that were returned and is highly recommending that Lothrop Associates provide the service to what the village is trying to do in this first step. We thought we wouldn't make any decisions tonight, but we have the building inspector here, and Ed probably add a little bit more and say it a lot better than I did in terms of kind of what we're trying to do here. But and we have spoken with the board, and I've spoken particularly with Trustee Corrales, who is the liaison to the Recreation Commission. And this whole process it's not just about recreation, but it's a lot about recreation and the programming that serves the youth and the seniors. And beyond this, we think this is the first step, and the second step being, then creating the vision and presenting to the community the ideas of where we should go and how best we can invest the monies that we have. And that obviously will be a community project. We'll be involved in that as a community. Andy, you want to add any more to that?
No, I think it would be good for Ed to explain the scope of what the work is going to be, and then and the buildings that are involved, because I think that's important to point out which buildings are involved in this that serve all of our different recreation functions.
So every time you ask me to show up here, you say everything I was going to say.
Not as well.
I'm lost. So when it became evident to us, from the Parks Department and the senior program and everything, that they're running out of space and need to expand a little bit, they asked me to come down and give them some advice, some suggestions, and we looked at, the Embassy Center and said, well, they had some suggestions of what they wanted to do, and we thought that we should know what we're working with. So that was the intent of this RFP. We have, a lot of buildings here in the village that are pretty old. The Embassy Center needs some work. And before we spend money out of our fund, we want to know what we're spending it on. So the extent of the RFP is to have, a competent architectural and engineering firm come in and assess the Embassy building, the Memorial Parks building, which I don't think needs much work, but since we're at all the parks, we added that in. That's a smaller building, and Gould Park building, which definitely needs some work. So we gave them a scope of, we want to look at, structure, roof, MEPs, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and gave them, the lead that, they would be looking down the road later to thinking about expansion too. So that idea would be in their assessment, but it's not part of the program. They're not going to come in with plans for new jobs. That would be phase 2. So new buildings or additions to the buildings would be the next RFP. And so when we looked at the prices that came in and the experiences the village has had with both of these firms, and we came up with an edge for Lothrop Associates, and we're recommending you an award to them. And they would be willing to come in and answer any questions you have at the next meeting and make a presentation for the residents and the board. After that, we'll be moving on to the next phase and look at what the village needs. The seniors definitely need work. The the kids need places too. And we have a lot of buildings that are deteriorating. So as you said, the ambulance corps building is one that we already have an assessment of that, so we'd probably throw that into the mix when we got for the next RFP. And,
Great. Any
Thank
questions
you.
for any questions for Ed?
I just wanted to compliment you on the RFP, because too often these things just say, what's it gonna cost to repair? And you pushed it, what's it gonna cost short-term, what's it gonna cost long-term? And, you know, as the Board of Trustees, we've got to spend our money wisely, and usually it's better to do something that's gonna fix it for the longer term, particularly if we're thinking of perhaps putting another floor or an addition or something like that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, the structural integrity will be so important if we are looking to expand, especially if any of the buildings are going to go up or not. So it'll be really useful to have this data. And I should also just note that the Recreation Commission has also looked at the bids that came in, and so they did have a chance to weigh in on this as well. And it would be useful to hear from this company that you're recommending at the next hearing.
I'm not sure they're here.
Did they work for the village before?
They have been working for the village in reviewing as a third-party architecture and engineering firm for all of the
Rivertown Square,
Square
Mercy,
and Mercy College, and we've had a pretty good relationship, and they're really on top of
I mean, it's a small contractor, man, you may want to consider it tonight, just to get them started. You know, we do know them, they've been working with the village for some time, and how do you feel about it?
I mean, I've reviewed the bid and discussed it with you separately. I feel very comfortable with them, but if we think that it would be beneficial to have them come in, I'm open to that as well.
We're gonna ask them
fine
to come
either
anyway,
way.
right?
Yeah.
So why don't we, if you could arrange them to come to the next meeting, and they could provide a presentation, what they're gonna do, and we can learn a little bit more about. They have a very impressive portfolio, so that would be nice to see as we start, not to think ahead yet, but we're gonna at some point get to phase 2, and that's gonna be probably more the exciting part of all this, and be good to know just what they will be able to provide. Understanding that might be a separate process, but I think, and then we can take action that night, so we're just talking 2 more weeks.
Sure.
Yeah, and for the benefit of the
Yeah.
public to hear from them, I think
Right.
it would be
And
good.
I think that even that night, we'll have even more to kind of say about what happens after, you know, where we go beyond this, sort of to give everybody the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Very good.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so we'll revisit this one at the next meeting. Action item number 4 is to consider a motion to retain Mr. Michael Wilbur as the consultant for the new ladder truck for Resolute Hook and Ladder Company. This will be for an amount of $6,500 as recommended by the Resolute Hook and Ladder Truck Committee. Just by way of background, this is involving, but you know, at some point the village is going to have to look at a new ladder truck, and this is a very expensive piece of equipment. We have had and did get a presentation from Fire Chief McIlvain, as well as Second Assistants Marin and Dinek. You know, they feel they've done work, I think, with this individual before. This person is very, very well known in the industry. These are very involved pieces of equipment. We've got, you know, a certain amount of space that we can work with here. So there's a lot that goes into deciding just, you know, how you build this piece of equipment, what your priorities are, and this individual, I think, has been highly recommended. They can help the department steer through that, as well as the village staff that will be involved and the Board of Trustees at the end of the day. Neil, does that sound about right, I guess? Yeah, if you want to add anything to it, I think...
Just Neil Sweeting, I'm a member of the Resolute Hook and Ladder and the Truck Committee. Yeah, it's just, as the mayor said, that, you know, this is a purchase that's going to, you know, it's going to be in $1 million north or south of that range. And this piece of equipment is going to serve the department and the village for 25 years. And we want to make sure we get it right. I mean, these are so sophisticated and technologically involved. You know, we don't have the experience in braking systems and the hydraulics and the electronics and we need some help on that. And we think it's prudent to bring in Mr. Wilbur, who's very renowned in his field, to help us out with this and to set us a design spec that we can go out with. And he knows the parameters of, you know, what we're dealing with in the village, the type of streets we're dealing with, the building, access issues to the building, weight issues. So we think it would be very prudent to spend this money to help us out.
Thank you, Neil. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, then I'll take a motion to consider retaining Mr. Michael Wilbur as the consultant for the new ladder truck for Resolute Hook and Ladder Company. This will be for an amount not to exceed $6,500 as recommended by the Resolute Hook and Ladder Truck Committee, as well the Chief McElvain and Assistant Chiefs of the department. Is there a motion? Trustee O'Donnell, second. Trustee Cassell, discussion? All in favor? Passes with 4 ayes. Thank you, Neil. Action item number 5 is to consider motion to refund the overpayment of taxes to 108 Round Hill Road for an amount of $344.70 and to 231 Clinton Avenue for an amount of $15,585.34 as recommended by the village treasurer. We have a memo here from the village treasurer outlining sort of the circumstances for these various refunds. Basically, these are overpayment of taxes that for some reason they just don't want to keep here in the village. They want it back. I don't understand. But you didn't try to talk. I mean, I know you tried to talk them out. So, but we can't keep it from them. They are overpayments. So, unless there's any other question, I'll take a motion then to approve the overpayment of taxes and the refunds as outlined. Trustee O'Donnell, second. Trustee Cassell, discussion. All in favor? That passes with 4 ayes. Action item number 6 is consider motion to certify and approve the 2015-16 Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Ambulance Corps Service Award points listing as submitted by the Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Ambulance Corps. The only question I had is I got the certification but didn't see the name, so I'm assuming that there's a list of names that does go with this, and we're okay with that? Nothing, I mean, I know this is standard practice. It's a great awards program.
I have the listing in my office.
And you're okay with that? It all checks out. Great. You know, a great awards program, and we really appreciate the volunteers of the in the ambulance company that provide benefits. You know, a real big benefit to us in our biggest time of needs, right? So we appreciate that, and there's a little bit of a service reward for that. So is there a motion to certify and approve the 2015-16 Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Ambulance Corps Service Awards, please? Trustee O'Donnell, second. Trustee Corrales, discussion. All in favor? It passes with 4 ayes. Action item number 7 is to consider a motion to certify and approve the 2015-16 Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Firefighter Service Awards points listing as submitted by the Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Fire Department. We did have a certification in our letter signed and notarized in our packets. That's fine. So the same thing there. You have seen the list and it all checks out.
Correct.
Great. So there's a motion to approve the 2015-16 Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Firefighters Service Awards points listing. Trustee Corrales, second. Trustee Cassell, discussion. All in favor? Passes with 4 ayes. Okay, great. Thanks. We've gotten through our matters requiring action. Now let's look at the minutes. I've looked at we have January 26th, February 9th, and February 11th. I'm sorry, I did not see the 9th or the 11th in my packet. Now, maybe they were sent. So I can't comment on them, but I did look at the January 26th, and that looked fine to me, except Liz, the only thing I had was just Fire Chief Jerry McElvain, and then just, I don't know if you needed to specifically mention the Assistant Chief titles there, just breaking it up on that one line, but that's a bit nitpicky. Otherwise, I didn't see anything else that needed to be modified for the 126 meeting.
Yeah, that's all I got.
As long as the 26th.
Okay, so I think we can only, now, let's see, were we all, so the 4 of us were in attendance, so we can vote. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So on that basis, then I'll take a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for January 26, 2016 as presented. and it with the amended suggestion. Trustee O'Donnell? Trustee Corrales, second, all in favor? Okay, so we've adopted the minutes of the January 26th meeting. Sorry we missed the other one, so we'll just have to double up, I guess, but we'll do February 9th and February 11th next go around, and we'll get all caught up. No, are there any correspondence and claims on tonight? Any, what brings us to the end here? Any reports, Paul?
No reports, I just had a few announcements from the rec.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready. Okay. This is from the Recreation Department. There's a spring egg hunt. That's Saturday, March 19th at 10 a.m. in Gould Park. I know my kids love this event. It's for kids pre-K to third grade. All kids must bring their own basket to collect the eggs, but of course the eggs will be there. Also, the next announcement is summer camp registration will begin Saturday, April 2nd at the Community Center, the Embassy Community Center. That's from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for all camps, which is junior, senior, and teen camp. All registrants must bring a copy of immunization records in order to register. I know that's what always trips me up. The Recreation Department events are now also being publicized on burbio.com. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced. It's burbio.com, along with many other of our Dobbs Ferry community organizations. You can register at burbio.com for free and get weekly notices regarding recreation events. Residents will be able to link the event to their personal calendars. The Recreation Department will also continue to advertise events on the village's website and Facebook as well.
Thank you, Ann. Jeff, we're good? Okay. Just a couple things to wrap up here. I again want to just announce for those that maybe are still watching or hadn't seen before that if you are on the waiting list for the commuter waterfront parking permit waiting list, you can get your parking permit tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And if you've missed this announcement, the police department will inform you that your parking permit is available.
Up to 50. Up to 50.
Right, we're releasing 50. We have about 45 as of tonight on the list. So if you still need one and you're a resident, come down and get one quickly because they may start to go again. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Just in closing, I want to acknowledge the retirement of DPW motor equipment operator Rick Kampke, effective February 25, 2016. I know a lot of people, a lot of you know Mr. Kampke. He began working for the village of Dobbs Ferry on February 21st, 1978. So he's been working with the village for a long time and a member of just a great unit of workers that we have and are so blessed to have here in Dobbs Ferry that really do such a great job in keeping our streets clear and picking up our garbage and just great work they do, and it's really, really hard work. Rick serves also has served as the shop steward for the Teamsters Local 456, and he's done so for the past 25 years. So we just want to recognize and acknowledge Rick Kampke. We want to wish him all the best of luck in his retirement. I know we'll see him around town. Okay, thanks everybody. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.